Wamanjika, welcome sisters and brothers to this week's Gospel Reflection series from God Squad. I'm Stephen Barrington, or Barro, from the Melbourne chapter of Squad here in Australia. This week we're already into the second week of Lent, a period or a season that many Christians throughout the world remember as we prepare for Easter. And Lent is a season of preparation and remembering the Easter as we remember the Easter event. This time during Lent, as many of us throughout the world are also particularly remembering sisters and brothers that we have in the Ukraine, sisters and brothers from our church community, and particularly sisters and brothers from our God Squad community who are doing life pretty tough there in the face of an invasion. We particularly pray for them, we stand with them, we remember them, we ask for God's compassion and love and protection, and above all, we ask for a miracle to occur at this time. Today's reading comes from Matthew chapter 22, verses 34 to 40, and takes place during Holy Week. Holy Week is the week that begins with what we call the Palm Sunday, when Jesus enters into Jerusalem on the back of a donkey, and of course bookends with the death, trial, death, and resurrection of Jesus a few days later. Roughly a third of the Gospels are from the last week of Jesus' life. It is significant leading up to the trial, death, and resurrection of Jesus. In Matthew's Gospel, it's chapters 21 to 28. Mark, chapters 11 to 16. Luke, chapters 19 to 24. And in John, nearly half of the Gospel, chapters 12 to 20. Here in this time, we see and hear Jesus teaching his disciples about the stuff that is really important. And we also see in this time that Jesus is running into constant conflict with the Pharisees, with the religious elite of the time. He takes them all on: the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the chief priests, the elders, lawyers, and the Herodians. He often embarrasses them and shows them up for their lack of love and compassion. No wonder they wanted him to be silenced. He shows them up for their hypocrisy, their love of power, their self-righteousness, their self-interest, and their lack of compassion and love. And in today's passage, the Pharisees send in the big guns to try and trap Jesus. Let's listen to the words here of Matthew chapter 22. Hearing that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, the Pharisees get together. One of them, an expert in the law, tested him with this question: "Teacher, what is the greatest commandment in the law?" Jesus replied, quoting Deuteronomy 6, verse 5, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it." And he adds a quote from Leviticus 19, "Love your neighbour as yourself. All the laws and the prophets hang on these two commandments." Again, like many other times in the Gospels, the religious elite don't come to have a conversation with Jesus in order to learn, or how to take better care of others around him. But we're already told in this passage that they come here in order to trap Jesus. And of course, we see that this still happens today. We see, particularly on social media, but also in conversations, that people bait other people in order to, people who've got different views from themselves, in order to start an argument, not out of any sense of care and compassion for those around them, but just to prove how right they are and how wrong the others are. It's an easy trap to fall into, and it's one that doesn't unite people at all, but just divides us. In this passage, Jesus doesn't particularly play this mind game with them and calls them back to the core of his message. In his mind, love for God and love for neighbour are linked together. Or as he puts it at the end of this passage, in these two commandments hang all the law of the prophets. Jesus speaks to the Pharisees, telling them that the Torah is rightly understood when it comes through the central lens of love for God and love for neighbour. And for Jesus, this comes through again and again and again in very practical terms, showing care, compassion, love, and hospitality, especially to the last, the least, and the lost. He's constantly subverting the role of the law as just a bunch of rules and regulations full of legalism, and instead is pointing to its core teaching and reminding them and challenging them to show God's love, care, and compassion to those around them, and for us to do that today as well. This is our challenge still. How do we do this in the big and the small ways? How are we, me included, tempted to act like the Pharisees and try and trap others with our smart words in order to win an argument? What rules prevent us from showing God's compassion and love in a hurting world today? Does someone's sexuality or their gender or race or religion or theological position stop us from sharing God's love and grace towards them? Today, as we move through this season of Lent towards the Easter event, let us be reminded, challenged and encouraged to follow Jesus, who, as we know, often came to comfort the disturbed and to disturb the comfortable. May we do likewise today. Amen.